Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this meeting order, regular council meeting for March 5th, 2019 at 6:05 p.m. Closed session, we have.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. There are no reportable action taken in closed session. I would note for the record, however, that Councilmember Boomgarden was present at 5:05 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
You had to call me out?
Okay.
Sorry, Councilmember. Just needed to make it clear that you were involved in the proceedings.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Harris, Vice Mayor Cardoza,
Here.
Councilmember Boomgarden, Councilmember Spandola,
Here.
and Councilmember Shaw.
Here. Okay, we'll have the invocation by Chaplain Felisky, and our Pledge of Allegiance. Please have Tony lead it after the invocation, please.
I'd just like to say it's a privilege. I count this as a privilege. I don't take lightly the opportunity to pray for government and to pray for what goes on in our city and how important it is. There is a scripture that says that there is a spirit of wisdom and counsel. And I have for a long time appreciated, as difficult as it is to make decisions that government has to constantly make. So I'm going to pray for your individual wisdom, if it's okay with you, and counsel. Father, I'm so thankful for what you are doing over our city, your hand on it, the good things I hear about every day. I'm thrilled that you move in such a way in people's hearts and minds that they look beyond themselves and they look to others. And I pray now for our city council and everyone in our city government, that God, the spirit of wisdom and counsel would come over them. That the spirit of wisdom, that you would give them wisdom beyond their years, and counsel, that they would truly connect with one another, hear each other clearly, and come up with the best decision. And I thank you for it. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we're going to start off with Adopt the Park Appreciation from the Starbucks Coffee Company, number 687. Crystal, Michael, and Dee Dee, will you please come up front, please? And council. Taken to right in the center, please. Right in the center, please. First of all, I'd like to welcome you. Hi there. Okay. From February 28th, 2018 to February 28th, 2019, the Starbucks Coffee Company, number 687, adopted San Brennan Park in Yuba City. The Starbucks Company 687 include members Savannah Ford, Sergio, yeah, it's close. I'm going to butcher these, I know I am. Liz Duran, Jamie Gran, Kerry Wallace, Nathan Deemers, Hunter Litchens, Lindsay Hovey, Jennifer Sheely, Tamara J, Dee Dee Carrion, she's not here at this time, Gabby Osgood, Almira, thank you. Almira Vasquez, Whitney Go, Tracy Watson, Liz O'Neill, Megan Smith, Jen Klein, Summer Taylor, Jules, Taylor Stevenson, and Sam Vella. The group takes pride in genuine care for San Brennan Park, each month continuing to pick up trash, provide general care and beautification to our park. Now, therefore, being resolved that I, Manny Cardoza, Vice Mayor of the City of Yuba City, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim and recognize the volunteers of the Starbucks Company, number 687, and commend them on their dedication to adopt the park program as well as San Brennan Park. Thank you very much. Large. I'm not sure who's a switch. Okay, you might charade. And while we're here, okay, and we're going to show this. We're going to show this to the audience. Thank you, sir. Anyway, what these folks have. And would you two like to say a little something?
Sure.
It's all yours.
Hi, so my name's Michael. I'm the district manager for Starbucks in the Yuba City area and up to Chico. And this is just kind of what we do as a company. We love to give back to our local communities and do whatever we can. So we're always looking for different ways that we can give back. So thank you for this recognition. We appreciate it.
That's it. You good?
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
And we have a bag of goodies for you. We have.
I take a venti coffee. No, just kidding.
And before you leave, we have a bag of goodies. for
Okay,
you,
thank
over
you.
on the left. Thank you very much. Okay, up next, would Pastor Samuel Thompson and his lovely wife Pamela please come up? Thank you. Dead center in the middle, folks. Okay. I'd like everybody to please welcome Pastor Samuel and Pamela Thompson from the Good Seed Church of the God in Christ. Pastor Samuel Thompson and his wife Pamela have resided in Yuba Sutter counties for over 25 years. In 1994, they established the Good Seed Church of God in Christ. The Good Seed Church created the outreach ministry facility, the Mama's House, consisting of a soup kitchen. Oh, I'm sorry. I said Mama, didn't I? Manna, thank you. The Manna House, consisting of a soup kitchen, feeding 3 days a week, annual early free Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners, and a men's traditional shelter. Over the years, they've received over 1,200 meals to men and women, have served over 1,200 meals to men and women. Thank you. You're keeping me in line. 12,000 meals to, yes, let me get that right, to men, women, and children in need in our community. Yeah, it makes it a lot nicer, huh? Yes. Therefore, on behalf, and now therefore, be and resolved that I, Manny Cardoza, Vice Mayor of the City of Yuba City, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim and recognize Pastor Samuel and Paula Thompson, Pamela, their community support, and commend them for their dedication to the Yuba Sutter communities, done on this 5th day of March 2019 at the City of Yuba City, County of Sutter, State of California. Congratulations to you. Congratulations. And would you like to say a few words?
I will start it, but I'll let her end it.
Okay.
Thank you, Manny.
You bet.
I want to say that when we came here in 1994, that was one great work going on that we knew of that was really facilitating most of the needs here, and that was the rescue mission under Pastor Bob. I forget his last name, but Bob Ash, yes. And he would often come and play at our church for us and sing. And I just saw that he was just really had a heart for this community, and he was just pouring out all that he had. Well, I was so touched also, moving from Los Angeles, and my wife coming from San Francisco. We were metropolitan, as you see as I'm dressed today. It's the way I used to dress every day. But I've learned to put on my jeans and my cowboy boots and my shirt and just get right with this community. And it's just been a pleasure to see over the years the different ministries now and outreaches that this community has adopted. And I want to just, I don't know them all, but I want to recognize Hands of Hope and Mother's Cupboard and the sleepover at the Catholic Church and various ministries now provide, even the Moose Lodge, and they provide meals in this community for are less fortunate. And this is just a great city and a great county to be in. We have served everywhere from Linda to Marysville, and we now reside in Yuba City, and the owners of the Porky's famous barbecue. Hey, but what I want to say is that this community, unlike a lot of places, we're working together to make everybody's life better. And now I hand you over to my lovely wife named Pamela Diane Thompson, my better half.
Amen. Thank you all for this award today. We have been in this community for quite some time, and it's a pleasure. We enjoy helping those in need, and we cook all the food at Porky's Barbecue. So it's a blessing, and we're thankful for the opportunity tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, Pamela.
You can call me Paula.
Sure, thanks.
And on behalf of all that, I got one good eye, one bad eye, and I was looking out of the bad eye. Okay, up next, we have a commercial Recology ad campaign presentation. by
Vice Mayor, before you go on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Tonight, agenda number 15 has been pulled from the agenda. And since that's Councilmember Espindoza's, would you like to make a comment on that?
Sure, Council Vice Mayor Cardoza. Thank you for in consideration of tonight that our mayor is not with us this evening. I am requesting that agenda item number 15 be removed from the meeting tonight and then be continued to the March 19th.
15th. Excuse me, 19th, you're right. Bad eye.
March 19th council meeting, and towards the end of the part where where council has an opportunity for statement, I will add some additional information to be considered towards the end of our meeting. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And now we have Recology's Waste Zero Specialist, Brittany Norris. It's all yours, Brittany. Welcome.
Not on. Is that better? Okay, good. I was like, I usually talk loud, but a microphone helps. I've put together a presentation tonight to show you what I've been working on. I'm relatively new to Recology since November, and I have been quick at work with this new contract and educating and sharing about our message of recycling and zero waste. So we have a 3-step program that I call, it's our Waste Zero program: informing, auditing, and educating. So the first step is informing. It's obviously the most important, to let our customers know about the new rate changes that are happening. And we took, and as well as, teaching about the state mandates that are there and the recycling and the best practices to do so. The ways that we have informed our customers is we sent out a January letter included in their bill informing them of the rate changes. We've also created a brand new brochure that I'm actually going to give each one of you a copy and leave some for the city to have as well as a resource. And the final thing that we did is we updated our website. It's all new information about the new standards and the new sizing and the new rates are posted on there as well for each of the franchises. The next step is an audit. So this is a very individualized audit that we perform on each customer who requests it. It's completely free. I'm the one that does them. We take a look at what their service is currently and evaluate what could be the changes. So this is an example of a visual from the brochure showing that instead of having one large dumpster, you can separate it and have better diversion as well as cost savings. Recology has really put a lot of time and effort to make really successful reports. And I'm going to show you some examples of that in the next few slides. But I have visited with 36 Yuba City customers since January, and that's of the 72, because I'm also working in all the other franchises. There's only one of me, but I'm doing my best to get around. So this is the Go Canvas app. This was created by Recology. It's a very visual report that I can create. So as you can see, I take pictures of their waste stream. And what's great is I can circle items that are no-no items or good items and compliment on what they're doing great. And then I can also write on there ways we can improve, maybe downsize. As you can see in the recycle bin, one of them's practically empty. So for this customer, I suggested let's downsize to just one cart because there's not even enough to have two. So there's different ways that we can find savings as well as the opportunities to recycle more from their trash. The next thing that I create for them is a service proposal. So this is very directed to the rates because as small business knows, that is something that's very important. So the top line and the top graph is their current service. And then I also show what the same service will be in April with the rates. And the final one is my suggestion that I make from the waste audit. This is where I can kind of switch up the different services, whether it's downsizing their trash and upsizing their cardboard or their green waste, providing them ultimately savings. As you can see, by making the different suggested service changes, they actually end up saving money when the rates happen in April. So that's the goal. It's not always the case, but I strive to show them that and really show them the reason why we're making these changes in recycling and making a better environment. The final action that I do is education. That's always the most important thing that we leave. So we have plenty of signs that we give to the customers to let them know and let their employees know and their residents, which I'm available to do trainings for those as well. And then as Recology, we love to be in the community. We love to outreach. And so I'm scheduled for Touch a Truck event, Earth Day. We're going to have all these kids come out to Recology. And I'm working with the Summer Stroll, and we're going to have a booth set up there. So that's my presentation. Do you guys have any questions?
Any questions from council? Any questions from the audience? Thank you very much.
Yay,
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll read that. Help me to
Okay, next is the consent calendar. Public communication, you are welcome and encouraged to participate in this meeting. Public comment is taken on items listed on the agenda. Then when they are called, public comments on items not listed on the agenda will be heard at this time. Comments on controversial items may be limited at large groups or encouraged to select a representative to express the opinions of the group. I have a speaker card here. Mr. Phil Tenner, would you like to come up, please? Trainer. Hey, I'm batting 1,000. I'm telling you, I'm 3 for 3.
I was here a couple of weeks ago, and any of you that show up at these meetings recognize me for the guy that gets up and gripes about the pension issue. Something happened today that maybe a lot of people probably don't know. The courts ruled that the pensions shall stay as they are, subject to if you could ratify them through the unions or whatever. In spite of that, I am not here to gripe about anybody getting a pension. That's the last thing in the world. I'm here to gripe about the fact is that you won't have money in the pension fund. It grieves me to think that the public are so apathetic about understanding what pensions are. The other thing that I don't like is the fact is that I don't think that the employees of the city or the county understand what's happening in their pensions. I would like to think, and I've asked for this before, that we get CalPERS up here and have CalPERS explain to the council and to the public what's going on. We've had CalPERS come up because I've asked for them in the past. We've had them come up and they've given us wonderful they get the screens going and they rattle off a bunch of stuff and nobody understood a damn thing they said, and they're not subject to having to ask any questions. I would ask the council, if it is possible, to form a committee, probably made up by the council, city employees, union, and a delegation from the public, and see what we can do about these pensions, because we're throwing our hands in the air and saying we can't do anything about it. And them that are getting pensions today, they won't be getting them 10 years from now. And them that are paying money in today, depending how old they are, they're whistling in the dark. Thank you. I appreciate your time, and I hope I don't have to come up again on pensions. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Okay. Appearance of interested citizens. Members of the public may address the Yuba City Council on items interested within the city's jurisdiction. Individuals addressing general comments are encouraged to limit their statements to 3 minutes. Does anybody here would like to come up and speak? Please come up and state your name.
My name is Vincent Burns. I live at 549 Clint Way, Yuba City. I had a meeting with Vice Mayor Cardoza and Sean Harris in the last week or so, 2 weeks maybe. And I'm here to address and talk about the homeless situation down at the river bottoms. I'm very concerned about this. This is something I'm very passionate about. And I'm here to ask that we talk more about it and get with people like Brandon Barnes, the city attorneys, whoever people that can make things happen. We need to get something going to at least talk about the pollution of our river, the trash, the degradation down there, and just all the trailers in front of the Sheriff's Posse Arena, all that stuff. Where are people going to the bathroom? Everything like that. I want to know what we can do, and I think it's a team effort that needs to be done. And I would like to have that some kind of meeting set up and public invited to it. You know, at least a few people from the public that are passionate about it. I would like to be there. I will clear my schedule. I can make any time available. And so this is something that we need to start talking about, start getting people to a meeting, a committee, whatever you want to call it. It's a joint venture that we have to deal with. The river bombs are being destroyed on all sides of the river. And this is something that I'm passionate about, and I got all your phone numbers. I'll be calling you this week. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Thomas Burns, and I am at 1885 Greengate Street. Now, I printed this little short story for all you council members, and it has to do with Davy Crockett. So I'm going to hand it to her, and she can give it to you. Hopefully you'll get a chance to read it. Anyway, I made myself a few notes here, and I titled this, says, "Do the people have a right to be angry?" And this has to do with the last meeting that we had here at the city council, and I was angry at that meeting. I've tried to simmer down since then a little bit. But we had SACOG representative here, and he was talking about our region. And he mentioned the region about 10 times. Well, regionalism is not the constitutional government that we are supposed to have here in the United States. So I believe through regionalism, they're co-opting our government, and they're taking the power from the people. So that's just a little bit to be said about that. And there's a lot written about regionalism. Hopefully you guys will dig into it and take a little time to learn a little bit more about it. And we are a constitutional republic here in the United States. We're not a democracy. I think you said the pledge probably before I got here. And it says, and to the democracy or to the republic? Yeah, to the republic. I was really upset too about this. I think it was close to 67 million in pension debt. And I just can't believe it. You know, in the private sector, anybody that did that would be non-existent, out of business, gone. So that is, it's a crying shame. And also our road conditions, unbelievable. I mean, everywhere you go, it's terrible. Take some of the people's money and fix the roads. And the building that's proposed to be built right there on Garden and Miles, I think it's going to be close to 40 feet tall. Everything in that area is about 18 feet tall, 12 foot tall. And it's going to be like a monument. It's just going to look terrible there, in my opinion. And I'm pretty sure that they would not put that right here at Calusa and Stabler Lane, would they? Right there in front of the John Deere dealer. So, thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? All right. We have one more. Please come up and state your name.
Hello, my name's Charles Jones. I live at 1156 John Wayne Drive, Yuba City. I'm new to your city. I've been here a year at the end of this month. I moved from the Bay Area. One thing to get away from the traffic, the congestion, the high prices of housing, etc. I like this town so far. It's great. There's a couple things that I could put my finger out on that I don't like. One of them, my biggest peeve tonight, will be the rates, your water rates. I'm paying double up here from what I pay down there. And from what I understand, you guys just had a rate increase, if I'm not mistaken. I think during the elections, I saw on one of you guys' websites, I think it was you, Mr. Shaw, about something about that. And I was wondering, is there any process where you guys are going to revisit that or what? I'm just trying to bring it up because not everybody that fits into their budget, you know what I'm saying? And I've cut back. I'm down to less than two. There's the flat rate of $54, $56, and then there's the next, I think, 1 to 15 units that they metered. I use less than 3 units every month, and that's during the summer too. But I'm still paying like I'm averaging $90 a month. Whereas Bay Area, I'm averaging $45, $50 a month. So I just thought I'd bring that up and see if I could get any traction on that. Thank you.
Shannon, am I allowed to answer his question about when we do the fees, rate fees?
That's within your discretion, yes.
Okay, sir, the rate fees are going to be coming up. It's every June. June? And yes. So it's coming up in a couple of months, sir. Okay. Thank you. All righty. Next, we have the consent calendar. Oh, is there anybody else who would like to speak? I'm sorry.
Can I make one more comment, Mr. Vice Mayor?
Sure, go ahead.
I would just like to give an open invitation to you, sir. If you're here after the meeting, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about the water.
Okay, consent calendar. All matters listed on the consent calendar considered to be routine and can be enacted in one motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the council votes on the motion unless members of the city council, staff, or public request specific items to be discussed or removed from the consent calendar for individual action. Would anybody from the public like to speak on any of these issues? If so, please come on down to the podium, state your name and record for the record. Seeing none, does council have anything? Recommendations?
Move to approve the consent calendar.
I have a first.
Second.
I have a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Okay, unanimous. Okay, general items. Number 9, canceling award of 2 Ford Explorers and purchasing 2 Chevy Tahoe SUVs, presented by Spencer Morrison, the county manager. You're up, Spencer.
Thank
It's
you,
all
Mr.
yours.
Vice Mayor and members of the council. The item before you is for the replacement of vehicles for the police department. I would like to recognize in the audience today, we do have Lieutenant Brian Baker, with the police department, Fleet Maintenance Supervisor Tony Jane, Mechanic Doug McKenzie, and Administrative Analyst Vicki Anderson from Finance. The police department has needed to replace 2 of their community service officer or CSO vehicles due to high miles and high maintenance costs. Each had about 100,000 miles and about 14 to 18,000 in maintenance costs racked up. They went to auction in December of 2018. In October 2017, the first CSO vehicle was that we're going to be speaking about replacing tonight was taken out of service. As part of the 18-19 budget process, vehicles were selected for replacement, and council made the award on September 4th. On September 14th, Givakey Ford in Yuba City's fleet manager informed city staff that the Ford cut off all orders for the 2019 Explorers, and this fleet manager spent the following week checking for any vehicles of that model year at dealerships across California and found nothing. At that point, staff began working on an alternative and exploring the possibility and costs associated with the plan, the plan we're bringing you tonight. Also in September, the second CSO vehicle was taken out of service. So in our analysis in the staff report, we covered these issues that we had considered, and we did ask fleet and police what other models might be suitable. And one of the problems that we're having here is that not just any model of family sedan or SUV is suitable for emergency service. They come wired from the factory and set up from the factory to accept the equipment that we need to put on it for the safety of the staff members driving them. The 2020 Explorer at this time is about 8 to 12 months away from being put into service because it's being completely redesigned and won't be introduced for several months yet. Once it is introduced, then the people that outfit these vehicles don't have the inventory of equipment to put on these vehicles because it's a new design, and they'll have to, once they get access to the new designed vehicle, then design the equipment that goes inside. And I do want to mention that purchasing policy 8-8.3 does say that bidding may be dispensed with when it is in the best interest of the city to do so. So the options considered, first option was to wait for the 2020 models. And this is going to be a long wait. There are currently 5 CSO, community service officers, working out of 2 vehicles. And so we want to remedy that as soon as possible. There is the design upgrade issue with waiting for the vehicle to be redesigned and the equipment to go into that vehicle. And the total cost difference is unknown. Givakey believes that the fleet manager believes that it'll be about $6,000 more per vehicle just due to the new model year. Option 2, the repurpose replace option, most notable is $10,212 over what was budgeted for these vehicles. $96,000 was budgeted in the 2018-19 budget. And going with this option, we will have to do a supplemental appropriation, request the finance director do a supplemental appropriation, and that money will come from within the vehicle replacement from a different police vehicle. This option 2 will get CSOs in vehicles more soon, and the costs are better known. Just a little recap of where we are. What the PD needs is 2 new Explorers for CSOs, and these are replacing end-of-service Explorers. And the PD has 2 Explorers that lieutenants are driving, 2017 models, that we could use to take the place of the 2019 Explorers that are unavailable. And we can order 2 2019 Tahoe SUVs to replace those lieutenant vehicles that we're going to pass down to the CSOs. There are cost differences. I just wanted to outline them in a more simple format than perhaps was in the staff report. We have the budgeted Explorers for the 2019 Explorers, and it come to 96,000. You can see the vehicles and equipment breakdown. And when I mention equipment here, that's goes in line with the recommendation that Cop Shop installation of Yuba City installs that equipment and charges the city. The option 2 total cost, you can see the breakdown between vehicles and equipment is $106,212, and that includes the purchasing and outfitting of the Tahoes for the lieutenants and the outfitting the repurposed Explorers for the CSOs on the right. So with that, staff's recommendation is to cancel the award of the 2019 Explorers, purchase 2 Chevy Tahoe SUVs, award the equipment installation to Cop Shop Installations, and authorize the finance director to make the supplemental appropriation for the $10,212. May I answer any questions or direct any questions towards staff?
Okay. Would anybody from the public like to speak on this item? If so, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, comments from the council?
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for giving your presentation tonight, and thank you all for being here in the chambers tonight. When we get our staff report, I want to give a little bit of more background because we are going into the budgets and looking at things. And as I explained and did my homework, I'm looking for every dime and every dollar that I can find to meet the needs of this city. As we've discovered, we need about $7 million for roads. We need more police officers in the streets. We need more firefighters in the trucks. So I dug in. I contacted Chief Landon, contacted Mr. Gwinnett, contacted, please forgive me, Sammy Eschen, thank you. And I talked to Paul over at Give a Key to find out all the history of this. And the first item is a moot point because we have to cancel the contract because we've got an approval for a contract on a car that we can't get. So that's a given. What bothered me was the $10,000 increase and the changeover in the vehicles. But after my extensive conversation with all these different people, I've come to find out that the Tahoe is really what our officers who are on patrol need and want because of all the equipment they have, and they've done their due diligence. I was very, very impressed with speaking with I want to call him Sammy, but please help me again.
Sergeant Eschwin.
Eschwin, thank you. When he rolled off his analysis that was done as far as the cost and replacement of the Explorers and then being a unibody versus on a truck frame, likewise, just the amount of equipment they have to carry and stuff, he had done his homework. And so I want to pass along kudos to everyone involved for doing their homework. It wasn't in the staff reports. I had to dig a little bit, but you don't normally expect all that to be in there. So I want to say thank you for answering my questions. And I think that truly this is in the best interest of the city to get our police officers taken care of. And they are utilizing the equipment they have and transferring the lieutenants' Explorers to the CSOs and getting the right car for the right person. So.
Anything else from council?
Through the Vice Mayor, I agree. Having gone on a ride along with a couple of the guys and having been in the 2 different vehicles with them, I can certainly see the difference. The Ford, he could barely get in his seat with the computer laptop. He has all his equipment on. And he uses, it's his office, their office, whoever's using it. And so when I was in the Tahoe, there was much more ability for them to move around. I support the idea of the recommendation. So I'd like to motion to recommend say the word? cancel award for the two. I'm like, Vice Mayor today, what you got, what you put in the water? It's too expensive apparently, right? A, B, and C, and D, which is cancel, purchase, award, and authorize the finance director.
Before I ask for a second, does Councilman Boomgarden have anything to say?
No, sir.
Okay, I got a first. Do I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. All right. Thank you, Spencer, and staff. Thank you very much. Appreciate everything. Thank you for coming down here on a Tuesday night. We can be sitting in a nice warm house. Okay, number 10, Yuba City's Development Impact Fee Study and Travel Demand Model Update. Award Professional Service Agreement for Transportation Engineering Services presented by Diana Langley, our interim city manager. Diana, it's all yours.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council. And so this presentation is a repeat from the transportation workshop last Tuesday, but for the public, I'll go over it again. The city's travel demand model was prepared in 2004. So what a travel demand model is it looks at the projections, it looks at the general plan, the roadway network identified in the general plan, and creates a model so you can see as growth occurs how traffic is going to react to that growth. It's been periodically updated since with various projects. As I mentioned, the network is based upon the general plan, and it's primarily used as a basis for traffic impact studies. So as projects come in and submit development applications, we then utilize that model to determine what their impacts are going to be. The need for the update is to reassess growth projections. When the original model was prepared, it was based upon much more aggressive growth projections. Update traffic count data and land uses. Evaluate the need for 4-lane arterials. Update the circulation element of the general plan. Provide thresholds for when a traffic impact study is triggered for development projects. SB 743 implementation, and update road development impact fees. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about each one of these items. In terms of evaluating the 4-lane arterials, what we found in preparing the El Margarita master plan is that the general plan showed that Bridge Street should be 4 lanes beginning at Western Parkway all the way to the east. When we reevaluated and updated the analysis, what we actually found is that Bridge Street between Western Parkway and El Margarita Road could just be 2 lanes. There was no need to actually increase it to 4 lanes. So what does that mean? That means less cost for to be included in the development impact fees, and then that becomes more of a local road that's just part of the development. The updated circulation element is needed to address level of service policy, to consider potentially exempted corridors. In the current general plan, it identifies that level of service F is acceptable on the 5th Street Bridge, but it doesn't allow that anywhere further to the west of the 5th Street Bridge. So as the city continues to grow, what this will do is impact the development of projects within the city, because once it gets to a certain level of service, if you can't mitigate it, then it becomes an issue. And so this would allow us to modify that level of service policy. It would also provide guidance on thresholds that could trigger a traffic impact study for development projects. So right now, rule of thumb we use, if a project triggers more than 50 p.m. peak hour trips, that triggers the requirement for a traffic impact study. So SB 743 is a complete shift in how we analyze traffic. So it replaces intersection delay, what we call level of service, with vehicle miles of travel as the primary transportation metric used in environmental documents. It becomes effective statewide on July 1st, 2020. And as I mentioned, it's a complete shift. So our current travel demand model is not set up to analyze VMT. It's set up to analyze level of service. So this is required so that we can meet the SB 743 requirements. So as development projects are submitted to the city, we can have the tools necessary for them to be able to analyze their projects in compliance with the regulations. And then the development impact fee study. The State of California Mitigation Act, also known as AB 1600, requires the establishment of a nexus when creating a traffic impact fee for new development. So what we'll be able to do is take the output from the travel demand model, apply cost estimates to that, and then apply that to the development that's expected to occur to be able to update the road development impact fees. When you look at the city's current fees, the road portion is a large portion of that development impact fee. So the cost The cost for Fair and Piers to perform this work is $325,000. I would like to note that a subcontractor to Fair and Piers is a local engineering firm, MHM. They'll actually be preparing the cost estimates associated with updating the impact fee program. We also have in the staff report $16,000 allocated for contingency and $16,000 allocated for staff time to manage the project. We're also requesting to authorize the city manager to execute the professional services agreement on behalf of the city, and then authorize the finance director to make a supplemental appropriation, a budget transfer from unallocated development impact fees to the CIP account. So we already have some money programmed into the capital improvement program. These additional funds are necessary to be able to fund this project, but it's coming out of the road developer impact fee. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Would anybody from the public like to speak on this item? If so, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. All righty, seeing none. Comments from the council?
I support this. I appreciated the deeper explanation at our budget and roads presentation last week. This is much needed. We need to get this done.
Anything else from the council? Recommendation?
Through the Vice Mayor, I would agree with Councilman Baumgarten that this is what we got to have to make sure that people know in the future that Yuba City is open for business, like you said. It's going to help us with growth. It's going to help us with the impact fees we're going to be addressing in the future. And I would like to note, I do greatly appreciate the contingency fee on the backside being 5%. So I know I raised that issue last time. I'm a numbers person. So again, kudos, and we got to do this. We can't wait because 2020 is going to be on us, and we're going to be unable to conduct business as we need to. So I'm in favor.
Through the Vice Mayor, one on the analysis, Diana, and we spoke about this, and so if this potential report would cover up to what, 2040?
Yeah, it looks at about a 20-year horizon.
Okay. So, but there could be modifications in between before that, or
Correct.
Or amended.
Right.
Correct?
So what they do is they look at what's the anticipated growth within that 20-year window, and what are the improvements required to be able to meet the demands of that growth. Those are the improvements that are then costed out to then equate to a development impact fee. But along the way, as you have projects come in, or if you have modifications to, all of a sudden you get a growth spurt, you can always go in and change the travel demand model to address that.
And the traffic model, can you summarize it a little bit, how you explained it to me and how that study,
Right.
She gave me the simplest version for me
Right.
to really kind of grasp it.
So the travel demand model not only looks at traffic internal to Yuba City, but they also look at traffic that's on the highways as well, and from the any traffic that's coming through Yuba City. And then what they do is allocate that. Okay, so how is that traffic distributed? What are the current roadway conditions? What would be the roadway conditions that would be required to meet the level of service policies that are identified in the general plan? And then from that, you get an output of, okay, these are the improvements that are necessary to meet those requirements.
And one example was it Franklin we talked about, or what area that is set up right now for a 4-lane?
Right. So in the current general plan, the way the circulation element is set up is that the arterials within the sphere of influence, so that's Franklin, Bogue, Lincoln, Bridge Street, Stabler Lane, they are all 4 lanes all the way to the outer limits of the sphere of influence. And so just from a common sense perspective, if you have your heaviest traffic internal to the city, you wouldn't expect to need 4 travel lanes all the way to your exterior limits. So that's why we want to reassess the 4 travel lanes.
And this report can then be utilized with local developers once it's completed, correct? And that would be a benefit for developers,
Right.
Potentially a cost savings?
Well, what the developers are able to do is hire a traffic engineer, to take the city's travel demand model. We'll provide the travel demand model to any traffic engineering firm. They can take that travel demand model, apply their project to it, and then come up with the impacts of their project so that we can create conditions of approval and requirements for those projects.
And that would help that process move it along faster.
Having a travel demand model that meets the requirements of SB 743 is definitely going to help move that along, because from a CEQA perspective, they're going to have to analyze vehicle miles traveled. And so starting this project now, we're anticipating it's going to take about 1.5 years to complete it. And so that sets us up so that we are in compliance as of July 1st, 2020.
Okay, I have no other questions, and I motion to approve the recommendations of award a professional service, et cetera. A, B, authorize the city manager, et cetera. C, authorize the financial director, and the recommendation.
Okay, I have a first. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Diana.
Thank you.
Item number 11, request for water or wastewater connections outside of the city limits, presented by Diana Langley, our interim city manager.
It's me again. All right, so for background on this item, periodically the city receives requests from property owners located outside of the city to connect to city water and sewer. There's typically 3 different scenarios that occur. You have a developer that wants to develop a vacant piece of property that's located outside of the city but in close proximity to city water and sewer. You have a property that has a failing on-site septic system where they want to connect to city sewer. Or sometimes you just have people who aren't happy with the quality of their well water and they want to connect to city water, or their property is configured such that they don't have expansion area for the on-site septic system and they want to put a pool in, or they want to add an expansion to their house, and so that triggers the connection to city wastewater. So past practice has been that we execute extraterritorial service agreements, also known as utility service connection agreements or tri-party agreements. The first ones that I could find date back to the 1980s. If I recall correctly, we have approximately 60 of these agreements in place. Some have been recorded, some have not. But basically what these agreements state is that in exchange for connecting to city water or wastewater, at such time as the opportunity arises for you to annex, you'll agree to annex. After 2011, for a brief period of time in 2010, 2011, the city council adopted an ordinance change for a very brief amount of time that allowed people to connect to city water specifically without executing these agreements. And then after 2011, as part of the water extension line project to Franklin School along Franklin, we converted some of the large subdivisions on the north side of Franklin to city water. And as part of that, we required annexation. So you have this past practice that's kind of all over the place in terms of what we've done. So as part of the water wastewater workshop, council provided direction to staff. Please come back with a policy so that we can formalize this, so we can provide residents with information in terms of how to move forward. So staff evaluated this and came up with 4 options. There's more options than this, but these are the ones that seem the most reasonable. So allow connection with no requirements. This is absolutely not supported by staff. We would not recommend this. Number 2, allow connection with execution of an extraterritorial service agreement. Number 3, require annexation prior to connection. And then option 4 would be a hybrid model that would allow properties with failing systems to connect with the execution of an extraterritorial service agreement, require new development to annex prior to connection, and require larger existing development such as existing subdivisions looking to connect to city services to annex prior to connection. So I want to talk about some specific scenarios, just to get a sense of, what this means. So here on Lincoln Road, here's Highway 99, Lincoln Road. There's a 4-plex right here that has a failing on-site septic system. So they have reached out to the city and said, hey, what's the possibility of us being able to connect to the city sewer line in Lincoln Road? So under this hybrid model, we would say, okay, you need to execute this extra territorial service agreement, and we would allow you to connect to city sewer. We'd be collecting the connection fees, so they would be subject to all of the fees associated with it. but they would be able to connect without annexing to the city. If you look right here at Karen and Lincoln, you have this vacant property that the owner would like to develop. The owner would like to just be able to connect to city water and sewer without annexing. You can see that the city limits is right here, so in order to annex, they need to be adjacent to the city limits. There would be a question of whether or not they could carve this out to annex, or if they would have to annex this whole piece right here. But, you know, you have situations where you have vacant properties right adjacent to the city limits, and then you have situations where you might have a vacant property that's 100 feet from the city limits. So there's a lot of different scenarios that could occur here that council just needs to have an awareness of. As we create a policy, there might be situations that don't fit exactly within the policy that would require some type of council decision. And so we would do our best to prepare a policy that meets most scenarios, but just recognizing that there could be some situations that the policy doesn't apply. So with that, the recommendation is to establish a policy for water and or wastewater connections outside of the city limits and direct staff to prepare the necessary documents to formalize and execute the policy. What this would require is, or what we would recommend, that we actually change the ordinances for water and wastewater to be able to you know, have this in writing in terms of what the policy is going to be for these outside connections. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I have a speaker card. Okay, would anybody like the public like to speak? I have a speaker card, Mr. Bob Renton. And Mr. Renton, can you please give your primary residence, please, so we can clarify your primary residence for the record?
Oh, yes, I'd be happy to. I have a funny voice tonight, so bear with me, please. My name is Bob Renton, 1106 Hun Road, Yuba City.
Okay. Excuse me, Mr. Renton, your primary residence, please, sir, or did you move back home?
Oh, I'm sorry. Primary residence is 10192A Luther Road, Live Oak. I have a secondary residence at 1106 Hun Road.
Thank you, sir.
Didn't mean to deceive anyone. First of all, I hate to be in a disagreement with Diana. I think she's doing a fine job. Good evening, everyone. I studied the four options carefully in the packet that was distributed online, and I have some experience with annexation. I'm sure Mr. Gale can vouch for that. Now, to me, option 2 is the clear winner. For everyone concerned, the city, the residents, whoever, whether they're in or out of the county, out of the city. My understanding is the city water enterprise funds, freshwater, wastewater, can still benefit from additional service connections for their best economic operation. And I invite Public Works to correct me on that point. That's correct? Okay, good. Moving forward, option 2 would provide the most opportunity for that economic benefit. For anyone here who would like the cost of their water services to be as low as possible, I know there's one gentleman, you might agree with me. Now, option 2 would allow an excellent project outside city limits to proceed easily. It might not have boundaries that adjacent to the current city limits, but it still could proceed. This is how most of the Walton area was developed. It was later annexed into the city. Option 4 would require the development to have boundaries adjacent to the existing city limits, and LAFCO rules on annexation would make such a development more difficult. And a city island out in the county area is not allowed. So all the land parcels between the proposed development and the existing city boundaries would have to be annexed, as Diane mentioned. That might discourage a developer with a great project. And the cost of annexation alone is not minor. So the bottom line here is option 2 is so much simpler, and I ask you to adopt option 2. And thank you all for listening. And by the way, I would support Diana Langley for city manager. Nobody knows the city better than she does, and the executive team. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Renton. Hey, perfect timing. Was there anybody here else would like to speak on this issue? Please come to the podium, state your name. You can get right behind them and get in line if you'd like.
Can we get the options back up on the thing?
Pardon?
The options?
Oh, can we get the options back up? Oh, they're up. I'm sorry. I didn't look.
Good evening, council members. Tom Tucker, Harder Packing Company, 1321 Harder Parkway. My concern about this is if they do, and I'm not for or against it either way, but I just do have one concern. When a party is going to connect to that, who gets the building impact fees? Who gets the, put the infrastructure in that? If that's so close to the city, they're going to be using city infrastructure, not just the water. So if they pull a building permit in the county, doesn't the city lose an opportunity to get fees for improvements to its city? So I'd like someone to answer that question. Like I said, I'm not
Diana, can you answer that?
for or against. I just want to know there's availability for the city to reap funds, additional funds for impact fees, other services other than just water and sewer.
So my understanding is if the development occurs within the sphere of impact, the sphere of influence, the county would collect the city's impact fees.
Okay.
Yeah. Ben did note, however, it would be subject to county development standards.
Hi, my name's Heather Esselman. I live on 2020 Lincoln Road. So I purchased a house that was prior, it was previously in the county. And I was one of those situations, though, that it had already been annexed because there was water that was running out there and they hooked up everybody to water. However, the older people that lived in the house that we purchased decided they weren't going to be interested in city water. So fortunately for them, but for us, it wasn't, because when we purchased the house, while we were doing the inspections and everything during the escrow period, we noticed that the septic tank was no longer functioning. So we had to hook up to city water, which was a city sewer, which was very difficult. But we were fortunate because they had been annexed previously. We were able to do that. Basically, my comment right now is that house was originally installed around 63, I think is what they said, and that's what the septic tank was. The houses around it, the same situation. So there's a lot of houses that were built around that time frame where they're going to have the same situation that's occurring right now. Is they're going to have a failing system, particularly if it's going to be discovered with a house purchase or something like that. And so I think it's a good idea to have a situation where they're able to just hook up as quickly as possible, because for us, if that would have fell out of escrow, the timing wouldn't have worked if we weren't able to hook up as quickly as possible. If there wasn't a situation where we could have said, okay, well, if it was county and it was failing, but there was a line that went out there, because on Lincoln up next to Sanborn there are lines. Well, there's a line now up for sewer up to our house anyways, because we had to pay for it to get installed as part of the purchase price. But just to say then that to make sure that it's a possibility if somebody has a failing system that they're able to get that done as quickly as possible and that there's no delays in that. That's kind of what I was trying to say. So whatever you decide, it needs to kind of coincide with that. Okay.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? Comments from the council? Questions?
Through the mayor and Diana, having a fair amount of experience back in the day with annexations and water issues, I remember a scenario where there was a cost sharing for the extension of the main line. Is that still how would that be affected by all of this?
So what we do, if the line's already in place, what we do is look at how is the line funded. If there's a reimbursement agreement in place, we then collect the, when we collect the fees, we then reimburse whoever constructed it. So we either charge extension fees. So if the city builds the line in advance, we charge extension fees, which is going to be the cost of the frontage of that person's property to reimburse us for building the line. If somebody else advanced the line, then the city executes a reimbursement agreement. So as a benefiting property connects, we're able to collect those fees and then pass it on to the person that developed it.
Is there a time frame where the person or the initial party that pays for that extension would realize their payback, or could that just go on and on and on?
The current reimbursement agreements have a term of 20 years.
And at the end of 20 years, what happens?
They do not get, whatever we've collected is what they get. If we haven't collected anything or we haven't collected the full amount, that's all we get. And then for city staff, if there's a reimbursement agreement that's expired, you know, when we're looking at quoting people to connect to city water or wastewater, if there's an expired agreement, we don't collect the extension fees because the city's not to benefit from that. And that person just got a really good deal in terms of not having to reimburse somebody for building the line.
The other question I have is in regards to the, for instance, on the fourplex. So if one of those fourplexes wanted to go, and let's say it's the one furthest away from the city services, would that be considered? Is it based upon a property line? Is that what you're proposing?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's no leapfrogging.
No.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from council?
To the Vice Mayor. This topic just opens up Pandora's box, as it's been kind of kicked down the line for about the last 30 years because it gets into services, annexation, leapfrogging, all kinds of things. I feel for the people that's having, sewer issues, water issues, and we need to find that avenue. I'm just one of 5 voices, and obviously tonight we are missing our leader, our 5th voice. And I would like to put this on maybe even the next agenda, or see how the mayor would like to handle it, maybe a special workshop with input from the public to get clear direction, because it's not just about connection. It also has to do with annexation. And I, out of respect for our mayor, I would like to have him to have a voice in this, because this is something that's going to affect our city for the next 20 to 30 years. It's not just next week or the next 12 months. So that would be my suggestion, as we schedule up something to go into more detail on this so that we have all 5 voices and not just 4.
Shannon, should this have been pulled before this came up?
And it's not required to be pulled, but the council certainly can do a motion to continue to the next meeting if they desire.
Okay. Now, Diana, if you could explain to Councilman Shaw, we do have agreements if someone's sewer or someone's septic tank goes out, and if they're within 200 feet, they get to hook up automatically. They don't have to be annexed in. You're aware of that?
No. Well, what we've done is we've executed these utility service connection agreements in the past. And so if somebody came to us today and said, my septic's failing, I need to connect to city sewer, what we would do is bring forward this utility service connection agreement to council for council consideration.
Okay.
So it wouldn't, continuing it wouldn't impact if somebody came into the office tomorrow. What we would do is work with the city attorney to come up with a form of the extraterritorial agreement that he agrees to in terms of legal form, and then bring that to council for consideration.
Now, what about this 45, 50 unit apartment complex sitting there on the corner with a failed septic system?
The fourplex?
It's the fourplex.
It's
I'm
a
sorry.
fourplex, yeah.
I'm sorry, I thought it was apartment complex.
Yeah, it's the northeast corner.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was off one. Okay, so they're going to be able to hold off for another 3-4 months?
This has been ongoing for a few months, so what they're doing is they're, bringing people in to maintain it, pump it. We did talk to them about we would be talking to council for policy direction. We didn't give them a time frame necessarily. If it's something, if council wanted to provide direction, that we work with them to work on a utility service agreement. We could, tell them that that's the option for them to address this immediate need while council considers the policy from a bigger picture perspective.
Okay. And again, your recommendation was option 2, correct? Or
My recommendation is the hybrid model.
the hybrid model was option 4.
And,
I'm
and one
sorry.
of the reasons I understand Mr. Renton's concerns, and it is expensive to annex, but as Ben noted, one of the concerns from a city staff perspective is having projects, especially new development projects, comply with city standards. That doesn't necessarily mean that through the agreement you couldn't require that they have to comply with city standards without, requiring annexation. So as I mentioned at the beginning, these were just 4 options. There are multiple options. Council could say, you know what, just bring us a case-by-case basis because it doesn't happen that often. And we don't proceed with a formal policy. That could be direction as well.
I would agree with. My light doesn't work. I would agree with Councilman Shaw in deferring until Mayor Harris is back in, but I would like to go on record at this point anyway in supporting the hybrid model. I know this is an issue that's gone on and on for years and years, and I'm a firm believer in the not extending city services to parcels that aren't going to annex to the city or at least sign the extraterritorial agreement. The other question I have is I don't want to get stuck in a spot where somebody claims an emergency without having that emergency be bona fide. And I've seen where that's happened in the past as well. So whatever we work in, if we work in something on you called it a utility services agreement, I believe,
Yeah.
is that we have some sort of verification that it is in fact a bona fide, valid emergency.
Right. What we've done in the past is work with Sutter County Environmental Health to get documentation that the system's actually failed.
I support with continuing it to the March 19th, and there could be additional other options of policy in just in the short time of the conversation that we had this evening. But I'm most closer supportive to the hybrid model than the other models at this point. That's where I stand.
Through the Vice Mayor. Mr. Vice Mayor, I move that, which one are we on? Agenda item 11, request for water and wastewater connections outside the city limits be tabled until the March 19th, 2019 meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go direct staff. Thank you, Diana.
No. Well,
We don't have to have a motion to vote on this, do we? Yes. We do? Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have a second?
Hold on.
Oh, we don't have a
Friendly amendment? I'm learning the language here.
Yeah.
There was an interest in working with this particular property owner, and I wanted to, I think that that's a worthwhile endeavor at this point.
Okay. We'll
So
do that.
moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Number 12. Assembly Bill 449, Federal Crossings Funding, Assembly Bill 322, Campaign Finance Transparency, and Assembly Bill 213, Restore Lost Funding, presented by Darren Gell, Interim Development Services Director.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and council members. Before you this evening about 3 bills. I will go over them briefly. AB 213 is a bill that was proposed by the League of California Cities, and it has to do with the way that vehicle licensing fees are allocated. In 2011, there was a bill that passed. The impact of that bill, SB 89, that passed, is $22,000 annually to the city as we currently stand today. If the city was ever annexed in developed areas, that number would grow more than $22,000. I do not know what that cost is on a per house or per person or per door. I could not get that information from the League of California Cities. And the League of California Cities did let us know that this does not impact schools or community college funding. The other 2 bills have direct Yuba City connection. The first one's AB 322, which has to do with campaign finance transparency. Assemblymember Gallagher actually looked at what your assistant to the city manager, Tara Locke, has done for the past 2 elections, which is place all documentations as it relates to campaigns on the city's website. This would require it by law, and it's something that's already required at both the state and federal level. And Assemblymember Gallagher called and asked for the council to consider that bill. And then the third bill is a bill that Assemblymember Gallagher submitted for the city of Yuba City back in 2017. Caltrans has abandoned their third bridge project south of Bogue Road. They purchased all the right-of-way for that project in both Yuba and Sutter counties. As we had a regular meeting with our Caltrans director, he talked about the possibility of trying to use the funds or the proceeds from selling that excess right-of-way for the local community to use for its own local alternative for a third bridge. The city's general plan that was adopted back in 2004 identifies Lincoln Road as being the alignment for a possible third bridge. We amazingly were successful in getting this bill passed without a single no vote out of the Assembly and the Senate back in 2017. But Governor Brown vetoed the bill because he believed that all those proceeds should come back to go to the state's general fund and not for a local project. I will tell you the reason why Assemblymember Gallagher's bill went through is they looked at other bills that were unsuccessful. And one of the issues was including the California Transportation Commission and not specifically calling out a specific project, but calling it an alternative to the project that's been abandoned by the state. So those are the 3 bills. I can answer, or I'll do my best to answer any questions you might have. And this evening's action is the recommendation is authorize the mayor to sign letters in support of these bills on behalf of the entire city council. Of course, at any given time, a council member can also write bills, and I'm sure both our assembly member and senator might be contacting you directly to do that on specific bills personally.
All righty. Would anybody from the public like to speak on this item? Please step up to the podium and state your name and address for record. Seeing none, any comments from or questions for Darren from council?
You answered the question. I was in the Assembly Bill 213. Some of the funding I thought would perhaps impact schools and community colleges, but it's clear that it's not, the $22,000. And that is specifically from the vehicle licensing fee?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Action from the council?
I'm looking for the recommendation. Motion to approve the city, no, wrong one. I can't read it. Go ahead.
All right. Motion to authorize the mayor to sign letters of support on behalf of the city for Assembly Bill 449, Assembly Bill 322, and Assembly Bill 213.
Second.
Okay, I have a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Item number 13, business from the city council, appointments of Yuba City boards and commissioners. Presentation by me, Manny Cardoza. Council Mayor Harris and I had a wonderful 2 days interviewing a variety of folks on our for screening committee on appointments for our planning commission, parks and recreation, senior and economic development commissions. And after 2 long days and a couple of coffees here and there, we've made a recommendation for our next group of folks for the commissions. And I would like to put note in this for council that I'd like to do this in one motion, all together as one, and this is an existing city policy. So after that, is there anybody here would like to speak on this item? And if so, please step to the podium and address. Okay, seeing none, comments and actions from the council.
Just, Mr. Vice Mayor, do you have a slide that shows the selection?
You have it in your packet.
Well, no, for us, we've got it, but for general public, I just didn't know if we had that. Here's your
According
presentation.
to our clerk, we do not.
You want to read them?
Yeah, go ahead, Councilmember Shaw, go ahead.
I got it.
Okay.
This
Go
one I
ahead.
have.
Thank you.
Mayor Harris and Vice Mayor Cardoza have recommended to the Planning Commission Lori Adams, Michelle Blake, and John Schaffer for terms that end 2/28 of 2023. Oh, no, I just lost it again. For the, this would be the Parks and Rec Commission, Stacy Howe, Bonnie Pullen, and Cindy Shatswell for terms ending 2/28 of 2023. For the Senior Commission, Laverne Denier, 2/28/23 is when the term ends. And finally, for the Economic Development Commission, Stacy Brookman and Margaret Fernandez with the same term ending of 2/28 of 23.
Okay, Mr. Vice Mayor, I move that we approve the City Council Screening Committee's recommendation for appointments to the Planning, Parks and Rec, Senior, and the Economic Development Commissions.
Okay, I have a first. Do I have a second?
I'd like to amend the motion. I'd like to amend the motion with that the Planning Commission, commissioners, new commissioners, and existing commissioners follow through with the bylaws that are in existence with the attendance of the commission, and that that we support and request that all commissioners attend all meetings as assigned.
Is there?
Yes, go ahead. He's going to speak. Go ahead, sir.
I want to ask a question first, because this may answer the question. Are there existing attendance policies?
And I haven't looked into that particular issue, but I believe there are attendance policies, and that if there is not attendance of a certain period of time, I believe the Planning Commission or else the council can remove the commissioner, however it is done. But I haven't looked into those, but I believe that there are.
I believe Mr. Gell can answer these. Can he come to the podium and speak?
There are existing bylaws within the Planning Commission. I do not think there's other bylaws in the other commissions.
Shannon, is that okay for him to speak on this?
Oh, absolutely. You have that discretion.
Darren, can you please inform us, please, sir?
In my mind, it's not coming to my mind right now. So I'd
Oh,
have to get back to
I'm
the council.
sorry.
But Terrell, who knows more of this, she might be able to answer the question.
Wonderful.
Sorry to pass the buck.
There you go.
So last September, we the Planning Commission has had attendance records all along since it was formed in like 1960s or something like that. And so I don't know the exact days, but if they miss more than, if they have unexcused absences more than 3 times throughout the year, then they can be removed. And if it's a long period of time, then it's an unexcused absence. If it's excused, then there's a little bit more leeway. And in September, all the rest of the commissions actually adopted ordinances with official attendance policies attached.
Thank you, Terrell.
To the Vice Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Just as a point of procedural, there's been a motion, but there's also been an amendment to the motion. That was my understanding, Councilwoman, that was not a friendly amendment. That was just an amendment to the motion. Is that correct? If that's the case, the next step is to see whether or not there's a second to the amendment to the motion. If there is, then a vote will be taken on the amended motion first before you go forward.
Okay.
So there would need to be a second and then a vote on it if there is a second.
Do I have a second on the amended motion?
Can you restate the motion?
That's a bit. She's going to state it. It's her.
You want me to restate it?
Yep.
That's a
You can
good,
start all over.
that existing commissioners appointed follow with the bylaws for the Planning Commission on attendance requirements and other commissioners to be present and active in our commissions.
And before you speak, Terrell just said that we have that. Correct? That's correct. Yeah, Terrell said we have that already in the books. Correct, Terrell?
Correct.
Thank you.
I don't know if
There's a required for an amendment?
I don't know what you're wanting to amend. If you want to amend that that each commissioner has to attend every meeting without missing any, and if they miss one, then that they're removed, if that's what you're asking.
what I'm asking is that they follow through with the bylaws for the planning commission, because I did review those. There's existing for that. And Councilman Sean, just give me a minute here. I appreciate it. And then that they be actively engaged, and we can decide on if it's one, two. The other for the planning commission is 4 consecutive unexcuses. So.
Okay. Through the vice mayor.
Yes, sir.
Just a point of order, if we could have it, in order for us to continue with discussion, the amendment needs to be seconded so we can pick it up off the table and have discussion.
Okay.
So we're having discussion that we really aren't supposed to be having, so can we either get a second or have an end to the amendment?
Okay, can I get a second on the amendment?
So that we may have the discussion, I second the motion.
Thank you.
Okay, now, do we have discussion?
So the discussion, the idea is to, I mean, the whole idea is to get people to be engaged in our commissions, and, right? And so our Economic Development Commission needs to be active. It meets quarterly, from what I understand. We're gonna have a further discussion on this, and I don't want to take up more of that without our mayor here, because I think it's important that he also be involved in this conversation. So it's just that we are elected to do what's right for the community, and I'm hoping that our commissioners are good representatives as well for us. And in that, I'm asking that they be present at the meetings that we are appointing them to.
Guess it's me again.
You're up. You're up.
Through the vice mayor. Looking at this amendment, I get the point that you're trying to make, and I get the direction, which is completely understood, but we have existing policies. This is not an amendment that is actually needed. It just is more fluff and emotion that we already have a process there, and we don't need to restate the process because they've all adopted bylaws and procedures that if they miss meetings and they are unexcused, then they can be replaced, and that is actually our job as the council to replace them. And then likewise, if they're excused for a particular reason. And secondly, if we appoint someone to a commission, we fully expect them to do their job and take it seriously. So I have to speak against this amendment because it's not needed.
And I respect that, Councilman. I totally respect your view, and I think the missing information is that not all the commissions have bylaws, that I was only able to find one commission to have a bylaw in the planning, and I had requested the bylaws from all of the commissions, and if there are, I am not informed, and that could be part of the issue of why I'm requesting this.
So, you're right, only the planning commission has bylaws. Some of the other commissions have guidelines. They're not required to have bylaws.
Okay.
So what is regulating the attendance policies is resolutions that are signed by the council. So it doesn't have to be part of the bylaws, which usually governs the meetings, but the attendance policies were adopted by resolution by the council.
Thank you for that additional information that I did not have. Okay, that helps. So I remove my amendment. We have the resolution set.
Okay, so I need action for.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. We're back to the original motion that was on the table, which is the one I made because the amendment was withdrawn. So the motion was, I move to approve the City Council Screening Committee's recommendation for appointments to the Planning, Parks and Rec, Senior and Economic Development Commission.
And do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Thank you, Council. Okay, the next one is appointment of the council regional committees. This is done, Gilsizer Drainage, the committee there, the mayor needs to be on that committee. So we need to replace Councilmember Shaw, because the mayor has to be on the committees in the future. Spent all this time and years, and came to our attention that the mayor needs to be on it for a one-year term. Anyway, I need staff, any comment? Oh, anybody from the folks would like to speak on this? I'm sorry. Anybody like to speak on this? Seeing none, comments or recommendations from council?
I move to approve the mayor's amended assignments to the regional boards and committees for calendar year 2019.
Do I have okay, I have a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All righty, unanimous. City council reports. Councilmember Boomgarden.
Thank you. My report will be short and sweet. Again, I want to thank staff for their budget workshop and the roads and streets presentation from last week. I'm also wanting to extend apologies from Lori Adams, Planning Commissioner appointee. She intended to be here tonight for her appointment to the Planning Commission, but she's out of town with her sister. And the final thing that I have, and Diana, please help me because I do not necessarily know where the location is, but on March 12th, we're having a goals and vision workshop. Would you mind letting the public know a little bit about that and time and location?
Right, so it's scheduled for, it'll start at 8 a.m. So breakfast will be available at 7:30 a.m. The workshop will start at 8 a.m. at the Harvest Room there at New Earth Market, and it's anticipated to be the majority of the day.
And just maybe a brief highlight for the public that what we're going to be doing.
Right, and so there will be a continuation of discussions related to the budget. Russ Branson, consultant to the finance department, will be giving a presentation on the budget, and then each of the departments will be presenting presentations on various topics related to their departments, and then we'll be reviewing the goals from last council, and then be working with current council to establish their goals for this next year.
Appreciate that. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Espandola.
Thank you so much. I took the time to put a couple of words together to help the city and our council members to understand a little bit of why is Councilmember Espandola thinking about a lot of things. And to be frank, it's in the last several weeks we've had quite a bit of change, quite a bit of things have been occurring. And so in that, some things are remaining the same, which is good for the community because we have to stabilize and have normality in our community. But I also believe that, as we're moving forward, we're asking a lot of our city employees to adapt to change and or continue as is. And I'm hoping that that it's important for us as city council members to also be role models as these changes are occurring, to accept the change and be able to move forward with it. As I'm putting forth new ideas, always please understand that I'm in the best interest and what's the good for the community. I'm seeking ways for process to be more robust and for the council to be able to look at things in different ways that perhaps we haven't looked at before. But again, this isn't about going against the traditions of things how we've done things. It's important to keep some of those traditions. It's about engaging our community members. And I think Bob said it best earlier, that it's about the governance of the city, how we govern, how we do things. So I'm hoping that is, a better understanding of where's Councilmember Espandola coming from with some of the process or the questions. There's a lot of thought and a lot of work to do what's right for the community, and I hope that comes across and that city council members, we can begin being the role models as these changes occur. With that said, there's been a couple of things occurring on February 22nd, the Yuba Center Chamber of Commerce breakfast. We went to the state of the Yuba Center, and that was great because we had city staff and the majority of the council members. February 23rd, we attended with other council members. We attended the 42nd Annual Peace Officers Awards, and Jeff Winder was our Officer of the Year. On the 26th of the last month of February, we had a finance and transportation workshop, which was open to the public for them, all of us to listen and hear about the finances, the unfunded liability, the roles and the roads and all of those particular issues. On February 27th, I went to the Planning Commission meeting and observed the process there. Then on March 1st, I went to Park Avenue and did some of the reading across America. It was really fun with the kids. Mrs. Woods and Mr. Mejia. And then I'm on the committee with commission of the Northern Sacramento Valley Integrated Regional Water Management meeting for March 4th, which was canceled. So we don't have a meeting until June. So I'll be attending the meeting then. Lastly, there was, we have a lot of information. We go to a lot of meetings. I'm requesting that if we could be a way for like a clearinghouse developed within the city and all the agendas and the minutes of all of these meetings that we attend, so it's available for us as council members and staff, or make it available to the public so people can see this meeting that I went to, what's the minutes attached to that meeting, so you're able to see who's there, who's not there. And I know people are able to look through that independently through each website or contacting the agencies, but I'm also wanting to see if we can make it a little easier for all of us to find the information within ourselves. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilmember Shaw.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'll keep my comments brief, seeing how I was fired about 10 minutes ago from the Gilsizer Water District. So,
oh, you were just on loan for a month. Yeah, that's all.
Of course, this time of the year, I'm quite busy with my practice. But as promised, I will always take care of the city's business. As police officers know, I was on the phone hot and heavy last night getting to the bottom of everything there so I could make an appropriate decision. Back on the 21st, Yuba City Transit, Vice Mayor can fill you in on more of the meeting. One of the most important things that I felt came out of that is there was a public hearing, and it looks like next spring, after all these years, they're finally going to have a bus route coming from Walton there at Sam's Club going up to the actual Yuba College Sutter campus. So we've strongly encouraged the Yuba College district to promote that. They said it would basically run on about a year to 18 months or so as a trial. That will help this community grow. That's just one more thing. You know, going all philosophical, there's a particular passage I know of that says, "My people perish for a lack of vision." We got to start thinking outside of the box, and that's what this council is trying to do. We are looking at things and asking questions because we're not doing it the same old-fashioned way. We're trying to find things. We know that there's problems within the city, rating from the water and the sewer rates, the garbage rates, the roads. If you've been to our workshop, you know, we are 12 weeks in, and we're peeling back this onion one layer at a time to find out what needs to be done. And this Council of Five is bound and determined to figure out how in the world we're going to fix it. Things have been here for a long time, and we're doing our best, and I'm confident in my counterparts that together we're going to come together and find the best solutions that we possibly can. Likewise, went to the Yuba Sutter Chamber of Commerce, went to Police Officers of the Year. Great time there, and looking forward to the upcoming budget workshops, upcoming committee meetings, just everything going forward, because we're gonna set the direction of the city on a good footing going forward. So thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Shaw. Okay, I'm not going to repeat. We were all there together on quite a few things, so I'm not going to repeat. I differ. We're going to start off this week with chamber events. I attended 2 ribbon cuttings. The first one was at Dr. Hondre's Dermatology, brand new dermatology here in Yuba City. He came from Chico and put a new office here in Yuba City, so we have two dermatologists in town now, not just one, but he's making a go of it. A great location on Live Oak Boulevard. Attended Precision One and Turk Concepts, embroidery, t-shirts down on Hassett. The monthly ambassadors meeting for meetings. had my Regional Housing Authority meeting, Planning Commission, and then the Regional Housing Authority invited me I went and met all their staff here at their main office on Butte House Road, and then their maintenance division over on Miles Drive. That's quite a group of individuals that are work very hard for the community on our affordable housing and working forward. And that's not it. They're here, but it's a tri-county thing. But they're here and they're doing a lot for our community. City and community events. Had a busy couple of weeks. Went down and I went to the Sutter County Elections Office and had a demo of the new voting equipment for 2020. State of the art. Hopefully, when they close the polls day at 8:00, you're going to know what's going on by 9, and it should be over with by 10:30 unless it's a close race. All computer, so they don't have to count them. It's all done by computer now, and they'll just beep it in, just like you do with your card. And then I went to the transit authorities where we have we're putting in our buses a rear-facing wheelchair, state of the art. There's no more people having to get in and latch in this. They pull in, it's all done hydraulically, state of the art. They back in, it squeezes the tires together, and they're not going anywhere. So that's coming very soon in the future for that. I attended the spring shootout basketball tournament, and that was sponsored by our Yuba City Youth Commission and Special Olympics. That was a wonderful day, or I was there for a few hours. I didn't stay for the day, but that was fun. Hilarious. It was great watching the kids. The kids ranged from 9 to 59. It was a wonderful time. Peace Officers Awards. I went to the Moose Lodge Chili Cook-Off, the kickoff for the Relay of Life. The mayor was the special guest chili judge, so he really enjoyed it. Went to the Have a Heart for Kids 5K run, and that was sponsored by the Yuba City Education Foundation. The mayor and I attended it. This weekend I attended Bowling for Veterans, and that was sponsored by the Veterans Stand Down, and it's the 7th anniversary for Richard Lawson. Attended the 24th annual Italian dinner for the Yuba City Legal Center for Seniors with Councilmember Espandola. Attended the 8th anniversary for New Earth Market this weekend. That was a fun time. All kinds of goodies throughout the store. I read across America. I attended Park Avenue School, my old alma mater. I did Mrs. Mander's kindergarten class and Mrs. Mancheska's 3rd grade class. And then I went over to Lincrest School and did Mrs. Ricky's kindergarten class. So had a busy couple of weeks, but it was all been good and fun. And that's it for me. And other than that,
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I just want to remind the City Council we still have 2 closed session items. Those would be items B and C, which we previously announced by title. We do not anticipate any announcements for these items, and we will announce probably the closure of the meeting in the breezeway in case these chambers are not available. Thank you.
okay. And then meeting's over. Thank you.
And that's over to adjourn into closed session.
Yes, closed
Okay,
session.
thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry.